It's 1 o'clock. We can start. All right, I'll put start.
Okay, folks, we're about to begin.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, righto.
Okay, folks, welcome back to council. Page 455, update to expenditure policies. Saskia, kia ora. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, apologies from Amelia, she's on something well Zoom and then family overseas. So I'll take you through the pages today. Pretty straightforward what we have in front of you. It's some updates to three quite important policies that we have in our organisation that detail some expenditure, travel, earning power, use of credit cards, of which the mayor and some members of staff. You'll see in the paper there's some minor amendments. I won't go through them. I did have in the paper so you can see that I've changed in the attachments. Probably the only one to really highlight is following the Audit and Risk Committee reviewing these at their last meeting. We have made another amendment to the credit card policy, which is detailed in the paper there. We have a component of EAs in particular that have credit cards, and really what this details, if my EA was to put travel, authorised travel on a statement, whose credit card items be approved and go to the CEO, so we've just added that extra level of protection in there. So in that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Questions, councillors? Pretty self-explanatory, really. Yeah, someone want to move that? No, thanks, Tony. Seconded Stu. Let's twist that again.
Yeah, I know, it's been a bit of a trend today.
Any further discussion?
I was the one who'd been out in the fog most of the day.
Aye.
Again? Carried, thank you. Indeed. Hi. Welcome. We now go on to better our funding allocation of surplus.
Yes,
Surplus funding. We're in council now, aren't
we are. The project manager's been doing really well.
we? Oh, very good.
Some surpluses.
Excellent. It was great down there.
Joe. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing much.
Yeah,
It's very self-explanatory. I don't-
Just like that.
I think we'll just any questions.
Project.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Tamer.
I just wondered, because I thought it was interesting, what sort of issues make it take longer to digitise property files? Like the kind of 2-week one, is it recorded on parchment?
So
That's
I think that from memory, Nathan gave me that example with a library. Sorry, not the library, the Gladstone Hospital. And it was really complicated. So you could imagine actually sitting with bunches and bunches of files and trying to coordinate and organise them and make sure that the resource consents are in the correct place and that it is all complete information before they actually digitise.
I did wonder how a house could have, but the hospital makes sense.
Yeah.
There's Queenstown Lakes that's the same, but ahead of us and did it a bit quicker perhaps. And there are so many mistakes coming up in their EDOC system now. You request a file and it's a completely different property, and they're working back through those mistakes and rectifying that once the paper's been put away. It's better to spend the time at that end than
Absolutely. You do know how thorough our information systems managers.
And they're doing
Minnetonka doesn't get too much out of the tranche funding. Maybe digitalisation of the records.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? Questions? No? Somebody want to move the paper?
Oh, well.
Thank you. Stu. Seconded through Tamer. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And the next paper is yours, Peter, so stay where you are. The floor's yours.
Yeah, good everyone. So you'll be familiar with this. It was apparently raised at council, maybe in terms of CouncilMARK. Obviously LG&Z went through the process of reviewing CouncilMARK and this now Korowai. And so we've tentatively booked in for the second half of the next financial of next year, calendar year, but with a view to having it occur before the elections and after the adoption of the long-term plan.
Any questions, folks?
No, just a comment, I guess, and I'm just, obviously we've got I should back up. I'm very much in support of doing this. I am really conscious though, we do have members of our community who have said, cut your cloth as much as possible. However, I think this would be a really useful tool for, I guess, a peace of mind for the community to know that we are doing exactly what we said we're doing and we're doing it to a certain standard. And I agree with what Peter has written, that it's an opportunity for us to, if there is holes, to find where we can improve. But yeah, I'm very happy to move that if no one else has got any questions.
Righto.
And secondly, those, any other people saying cut your cloth, but also the people saying be independently assessed.
Correct.
And it does come at a cost.
It does come at a cost.
We were saying resigning, it's $50,000 for a by-election, but you know.
And then that
Who's going to resign? No, not me.
Someone want to see that? No, we'll do that. Any further discussion? Thank you very much. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Gareth and Dan, we have, and this is the annexure, folks, that you have, on Capex reporting on current projects. That's Gareth.
I've emailed David.
It is good afternoon.
I don't have much.
Um,
David, right?
So this report is a little bit out of date, but for consistency, we decided to, we've done this report by the board and via the risk committee. And the next report is in draft and should be signed next week. So we'll go into a new reporting cycle. But basically, in a nutshell, it gives you an update on the build, talks about the next steps, identifies the risks. It's got an associated cost plan via time cycle as well. And then it obviously lists, you can remember the topic of discussion was the specialists, the additional specialists we found in the building. So that is special addendum. In the financials, when we did this originally, we didn't realise it would be so confusing, but the top piece of the financials is what we've got confirmed in the budget. And then the bottom piece is potentially what we could seek from external funding, just to put that into perspective. And I'll take any questions.
Early days. Well, right in recording that 92% of the contract's fixed price, that's correct. Really good.
Yeah. And as we're working through this initial stages in the process, we start addressing that 8% that's outstanding. So right up front, we'll start eliminating that and then going to a full fixed price commission.
That's great. Dan, do you want to talk to the Clyde Street project?
Sure thing. So we're well underway and I've been down there recently. I see the whole downtown area is cordoned off. There's big holes in the ground. The wood pipes going in, which the community really seem to be really pleased about. There's some reliable wood infrastructure. Same time, there's the pipe works going in, which has been done by Animal Drain Lane. We've got Ford and Hogan doing the street upgrades, so we're putting new footpaths, big wide footpaths. Seems to be on time, on track. They're sort of working closely, trying not to trip over each other. I think once we've got it done, we'll have wide footpaths equivalent to the build outs that you currently see all the way down. We should be able to see some street side dining in summer. I think it's going to be great. And I think the time schedule, which has been reported of finishing sort of mid-year, finishing end of winter for the big heavy works, which closes the entire town, should be on time, and then we'll switch to just one lane for spring. Continue doing sort of the smaller, finish off putting the bollards in, street lights, etc. through spring, but in spring should be all nice and looking good. So I'm comfortable that we're on track.
Yeah. And a good meeting that I wasn't able to attend, but Tony, you were able to a couple of weeks ago. It sounded like it went quite well in the end.
Yeah, I didn't know how it's going to go. There's some strong personalities around the Tamer, but the people who sort of had an axe to grind didn't really seem to get the group support. They were being a little bit unreasonable, and the members of the group wanted to ask fair and reasonable questions, got some good answers. So I felt like the vibe of that could have gone either way, but it was productive. We made some changes to the comm strategy, which will get through to a few more people. We have been getting through to most people. Most of the businesses are on board and they've been getting regular bulletins, and we're going to expand that out with some social media, some things in the news, and a few more people on the guest list. So it was worthwhile.
That's what I heard was that, and as a Clyde resident, the businesses were extremely well informed, but perhaps the broader public.
That's right.
Need a bit more regular.
That's right. It's a question at the beginning, where do we draw the line? We send to every ratepayer in Clyde, potentially having too much, they're always spamming us. Do we definitely the businesses? And that's where we started. But the line was always, if anybody wants to be added, anyone wants to know, they can join the list. And I've been adding 2 or 3 people every week, right through and continuously. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Just, obviously you bring up the comm side of things. Is there any learnings that you've had from this Clyde situation and how that works that can be passed on to other projects and things, just so for the rest of the organisation, so that any, I'm talking about the good positive things that can be learned for the rest of the team.
I'll comment on that, please, Tracy. Dean has been doing a 2-weekly update with his email list. And whenever we've had any concerns, we've actually gone out to Clyde and met with the various business owners. We've had a few meetings like that to understand the concerns. We have been doing comms, but we haven't been doing comms, but we've been doing comms. So, what we're going to do now is, so we're going to have a project page, so that anyone can access it, and we'll also from time to time use the notes for the CO news. But I think what we have learned is that different people have different expectations, and while we engage with the community about how we would progress the project, we had options of going hard and shutting down the street and affecting business through summer, or going slow through summer and closing through winter, and the project would stretch out in the timeline. And we spoke to the businesses, particularly in Sunderland Street, and this is probably our learning, who said we very much want you to get access to our businesses through summer and just have a few people working, picking away at it. The responses we got were things like, there's only 2 people working, what's going on? And we were actually responding to the time frame that those businesses asked for. But as Dean has said, we didn't stretch it to wider. Well, I think, we didn't stretch it to wider, and not everyone understood those conversations. So I think it's spreading the net wider, and also having places like our website where anyone can access it.
Yeah. Just sounds like you guys have done a good job in making sure that they're addressing issues promptly, so without having to deal with too much. So, I just thought it might be good for the rest of the organisation to pick your brains about the process.
Yeah, we're always trying to so over communicating, because people will much more happily tell you, we've had enough, don't send me any emails. They'll quite pleasantly say that. Thanks for the communication, back off a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're not upset, but when people don't feel like they're getting enough information, then they get a bit upset. So continue to err on the side of over communication. That's what turned out, even that wasn't enough. So
And as you say, and there's also misinformation.
Yes.
And we've heard things like the water pipe project isn't going to be now because one of the contractors told us that, but it wasn't the contractor that we're using. They were doing work, someone else will. So there's things like that, and people get upset, and then there's the Chinese whispers, and so Dean's attempts at over communication and a strategy now.
there've been a lot of trade whispers throughout, but I made a point to not door knocking, getting to know as many as depth I could, and develop a good relationship with enough of them. But whenever a Chinese whisper pops up, they seem to say, "Dad, is this correct?" And I go, "No, that's not." So I'll make sure that clarifying that issue is in my next fortnightly update. So not on head specifically.
It wasn't yesterday, they pick off this morning anyway.
There's very frustrating around traffic management and the number of cones, and we know this, and we try to respond to it, but we are working under the requirements of the existing policies. We know that will change through the government's program, more risk approach and case by case. So hopefully we won't find ourselves in this position again, but we've had our hands tied to a certain extent. We've tried to respond and, squeeze up the cones and do whatever at the time, but we are a little bit,
So come Christmas, when it's all finished and everything's lovely, now we remember it.
I think it was important to highlight at that meeting, there were some really great attendees who put a lot of thought into coming with some solutions. That actually we've identified this as a real problem for our business or for our access, and we think that a potential solution could be X, Y, or Z. And I think it's been really great the way the team sort of taken those on board and certainly explored them to the best that they can or can't be implemented. And if they can't, then the reasons why not. And if they can, they're producing them. So well done.
Thanks, Tanya. Yeah, the big 38 Sunderland Street section, which is the old service station, it's just sitting there idle. There's big plans for its future, but in the meantime, some of the people at Main pointed to the top and said, why can't we park there? If that's a really good suggestion, we'll talk to the owner of that land, and we have talked to them, and they've said, yeah, we're open to that, so we're working on doing that right now.
That's great. Right, someone want to move, we've said that before. Did you have a question?
I was just going to say, we're getting much traffic using the detour down through Miners Lane.
Yes.
Well, I asked for a very good reason, because I know some people use them.
I used it this morning.
Yeah.
Had to go back to the back door to get the kid dropped off. And he wasn't very happy to see me either.
Oh, well,
Okay.
like,
No, the butcher, because I
does it leave any concerns or any issues?
You mean the new lower Miners Lane?
Yeah.
No, I think that's good. That's a good, I mean, normally it's a very quiet piece of road, so it's another alternative, and that doing it safely and sensibly, that's fine. We still have a problem with Upper Miners Lane, because Google tells people that that is a through road.
Oh, yeah.
Tourists are constantly driving through
Is that
there,
right?
and have to turn around, often in a large camper van. We've had a vehicle have a sign even the last few weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was raised at the meeting.
Oh, well, okay.
By businesses on Sutherland Street and back onto Miners Lane and finding traffic.
Can you control that, Google?
The simplest approach is to get through to Google to actually change it.
Yeah.
Putting more signs, but the more signs you put, you're going to get so much better, because, sole focus, GPS on foreign country, I'll do what it tells me. That's still the biggest effect. I have put 2 submissions into Google saying, because they have a systems, but that's been several months. I haven't had your response. Your worship.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you would, put your submission through to me and I'll do it under the mirror overhead, because I did have success once.
That's
But it's nice wide, but yeah, why not?
Yeah, worth a shot.
Yes.
Numbers.
All right, so Tamer's moved, we received those. And Stu is seconding that.
Been down Miners Lane today.
All those in favour?
Okay.
No, against, carried. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. I think those reports are incredibly helpful to us, particularly in the hall space as we progress with that massive project. Righty ho, so that brings it to my report, obviously the annual plan and various bits of boiler from that, and discussions and meetings with the boards and everything else has been massive part of the last month. I'm about halfway through replying to all of these submitters, which I did couch the language of it as anticipated, whereas for the other half it is it will be. I attended a CDM lunch in May, and also just a couple of days later a CDM workshop for mayors. The only reason I really note that is it was really good for me as mayor to be reminded of roles and who's who in the zoo and so forth. But it's really important for all of us just to cast our mind occasionally to what the role is of an elected member in declared emergency or as emergencies coming along. Touch for Micah, we've been incredibly lucky. Long may that last, but we do all have responsibilities when that happens.
Touch for Micah.
Yeah, well, it's not what I was really pleased. The Mayor's Task Force for Jobs has gone really well. Those numbers have improved since they were put in there. And we're getting really great feedback from employers. I was at a business group meeting where one of the employers who'd taken on one of the Ringatani got up and said just how fantastic it was working out that night. The speed was working out, they were working out, which was really positive. And that's a lot of hard work by Craig Gilchrist, who's our coordinator and ably supported by Nick Lown. This is changing lives, which is the greatest thing I see with it. Citizenship on the 24th of May, still the favourite part of being the mayor. It's just wonderful. Roxburgh Dinner Club on the 29th of May. Have you ever been invited to that, Norm?
No.
Get yourself an invite to be a guest speaker at it, because it is the best high. I've done hundreds of things in my 7.5 years as mayor, and nothing comes close to the feed that the dinner club puts on. Apparently, set up by a group of women so tired of their husbands not taking them to dinner, they formed a group to take themselves out. Which I think is quite magnificent, although it was a tad intimidating. Well, there was a couple of blokes in the kitchen, but outside of that, but it was a great one.
Went to one of the heritage talks on Lake Manihikea, and Peter went to that too, that anybody who went, God, they were interested. I thought I knew a bit about it, and it turned out I did know a bit about it, but most of it was wrong. So it was quite educating. It just made me wonder how much people have taken notice of me over the years when I've been spouting things that weren't right. And there's another one coming up. Mark Darby has written a biography of Cromwell surgeon Doug Jolly, and we had with the Neil where we put a plaque up on Jolly's store, and we started to get the talk of this guy. He was a surgeon in the Spanish Civil War, born in Cromwell. His granddad was the mayor. Just an incredible story. And when you look at Spain in 1937 and just how incredibly backwards it was, essentially a generation and a bit ago in a European country, you realise how far we've come. But Doug Jolly was one of he wrote the book on the triage of patients in war zones that was still used by the US in the Korean War. Absolute unsung hero. So I'm really looking forward to that. I recommend the book. I'm about halfway through it. I chaired the Tibet Valley Community Board on the 13th and had expressed my views on a member telling members of the public that the chair's home. My view was far from positive on that. And I attended the memorial service of former Alexandra Mayor Russell Poole, 92 years of age when he passed, and great to hear stories, including the memorial service was in Monteiths, because that was once Bob's place. Him and his wife were the first to start a series of restaurants in there. And the difficulties that they faced with the then council was what put Russell up to running for council. And hearing stories, even though they may have been inflated by the passing of the years, it was a different world back then. And it was great Martin's not here, unfortunately, but Martin went to a lot of effort to get Paul Street efficiently renamed on his behalf. And I understand today through Lindley that Graham Wilson, who's a former Borough councillor from Alexandra or community board, not sure.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, we're not quite sure. Wayne's going to find out for us, but way back. What do you think? Of course. Has passed. So, in the off chance that he is one of our former colleagues, we'll find that out, but I wanted to know that in case I've forgotten. So that's my report. If there's any questions, happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll move it. Neil will second it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Governance report, page 503. Any queries, folks?
Yes.
Tamara, get into it.
Query on the Pines development, which is the first one. If you're happy,
Yes, please. Yeah.
I just had some queries from local real estate agents about what's happening with that, because they were interested in being able to market it. Apparently, when you currently Google the sections, the only thing that comes up is our somewhat old website and a list of articles advising that none of the sections are selling, which is maybe not the most positive 9% joy. Can you give us an update on who is selling those sections and how people can snap up a section in one of New Zealand's fastest growing areas and live in delightful Alexandra?
Yes, absolutely. So just want to wind back slightly. The developer's part of his remit was marketing and selling those properties. So we have very little influence in that respect. But I got on the phone with him this morning after receiving the email, and they have withdrawn the marketing plan because they're revamping it and they're going to be launching it in about 6 weeks' time. They have, this week they're finishing off the curbing, which means final prep for the road begins, and then they seal in September. They're going to do a big launch to market and hopefully sell out the sections. He reckons he's got enough interest, they should sell out pretty quickly. So he has no interest in using the local estate agents. He wants to do it with a via house and their package, which is neither here nor there to us, as long as we get paid once we receive title for the ground.
Right. So something's happening and we should expect to see it in the next 6 weeks.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I had a couple, both similar, just in terms of on page 525, the business case for Alexandra Wastewater. We had a motion back in November where we agreed the preferred way forward to the option was to construct a new wastewater treatment site on council land. There's a moves out of Wellington to Patrick.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
Yes.
Moves out of Wellington to stop the disposal for them. Patrick and I have had a chat. It might be just handy, Patrick, for you to update councillors of how this work will progress in taking into account that different way that the government may be moving, if you're free to do that.
Yeah, I can, if you like.
Thank you.
Basically, obviously they've become from the business case work, they've become two separate projects. One is Alexandra, one is Allocation. So Alexandra, we've been doing some work on what needs to be done in the interim to continue to enable growth in Alexandra. But then the big picture of actually replacing the full wastewater treatment plant and the options that we were looking at because of the national freshwater policy statement was not to put treated wastewater into freshwater bodies. So we had to consider that because by 2045 it was supposed to be enacted by all local authorities. We also had a consent in place there that we had to abide by. I can't remember what year that expires, but so there's two elements of looking at it. How much can we get out of what's there currently? And how long is it capable of doing the job? Then when it's replaced, what are our options to replace that Alexandra wastewater treatment plant? And the biggest question, and which has a large cost hanging over it, is how do you dispose of that treated wastewater? So we're working on that. And then the Omacare wastewater is, now that the annual plan's been signed off, I wasn't here for that bit, but I'm assuming it was. We're going to start work in July on deeper investigation into the options there. That we've got a preferred option that came out of the business case. We'll be looking at that. We'll obviously have to do a lot of community engagement, but first we want to make sure it's feasible and viable to do what we see as a preferred option there. So with our annual plan signed up, we can do a lot more of that early lead work before we make major financial recommendations to you guys.
Cool. Everybody happy with that? Excellent. Thanks, Patrick. Anything else in that governance report anyone wants to raise? In that case, somebody want to move it? We receive it. Thank you, Tamer. Seconded, Sarah. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. We have the community board minutes from 537 and committee minutes 537 through to 560. Any queries on that? Not. Somebody move it. Thanks, Neil. Seconded, Tamer. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. And our next meeting, you will find the answer to that riddle on page 560, which will tell you it's the 31st of July. Thank you very much for your attendance today. Thank you to the members of the media who are here. As always, great to see you. Nice to see you here, Jaden. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Sitting on the other side of the table for once.
Joy.
Well, joy. And not so quiet, but this side. We'll close the meeting and
I'll move.
oh, sorry, resolution. I wondered why you were looking at me with such a face. Yes, Neil moves that we just normal funds. And let me get a second. Yeah, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. I could not figure out. Fine.